Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the County of Los Angeles Citizen Redistricting Commission 13th regular public meeting and public hearing for communities of interest input Zone D. Today is June 23rd, 2021, and the time is 7:04 p.m. We will now call the regular meeting and public hearing to order. As a reminder to the public, this public hearing is being recorded and live streamed to youtube.com/LA County Redistricting. The link to the recording will also be posted and accessible through the Los Angeles County Redistricting website. If at any time any members of the public have any technical difficulties, please message me, Tyler, and we can work towards fixing the issue. As a reminder for members of the public interested in making a public comment, you may submit your name and information to the Google form available in the chat and on the CRC website. You will be asked on the form to describe your communities of interest. When you are called to make your public comment, you will be prompted to unmute your mic so you can speak, and you may turn on your video if you are comfortable. If you are participating via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. Once called upon, press *6 to unmute and speak. Each person will have one opportunity to speak for 2 minutes. The co-chairs reserve the right to limit public comments to 1 minute per person, depending on how many would like to speak. When you begin making your comment, please share your name and any affiliation you may have. If you do not wish to speak but would still like to submit a public comment, you may do so by going to the same Google form. Again, you will find the link to the Google form in the chat or on the CRC website. For members of the public who would like to make a public comment on communities of interest and not a resident of Zone D, you may submit your name and affiliated organization in the Q&A. Your name will be called to make a public comment after members of the public who filled in the communities of interest form for Zone D. Please indicate in the Q&A with your name if you would like to make a public comment for general public comments or for the communities of interest public hearing. In defining communities of interest, this can include, but is not limited to, economic and social interests that bind your community together, why your community should be kept together for fair and effective representation, where your community is located, and what nearby areas you would like your areas to be grouped with or not. I will now take the roll. As a reminder, commissioners' names will be called in a rotating alphabetical order by last name. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Present.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Present.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Present.
Commissioner Hyla Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher, excused, will be late. Commissioner John Bento.
Present.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Present.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Present.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Present.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Present.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Present.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Present.
Thank you. I will now turn the agenda over to Co-Chair Williams.
Thank you, Ty. In consideration of the public hearing we have tonight, I propose we move the approval of the minutes to after the public hearings. Are there any objections? Okay, the minutes will be moved to after the hearings. Okay, report out of closed session held on June 9th. Turn it over to Holly Watley.
Thank you. The commission did go into closed session on June 9, 2021 per the agenda item for that agenda. And the Brown Act does require a reporting out of closed session, and there were no reportable actions taken.
Thank you. Thank you, Holly. Now we'll move to public comments. This is for items, matters not on the agenda. Ty, do we have any public comments at this time?
We do. And just as a reminder to members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on the general public comment and not the community of interest public hearing, please enter in your name into the Q&A and that you would like to make a general public comment. So as of now, we do have a couple, I believe. The first one is Alejandro Ramirez Zarate. And so Alejandra Ramirez-Zarate, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. And if you would like and are comfortable to, you may share your video.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you. It's great to see you once again. And thank you for your commitment to creating a fair and transparent districting process as we've elevated in the past. My name is Alejandra Ramirez Zarte with Advancement Project California, a multiracial civil rights organization. And I've come to you before to provide public comment. So again, it's great to see you again. I'm also here representing the People's Bloc, a people-powered redistricting coalition working to advance the needs of Black and Indigenous communities of color. Firstly, congratulations on your first public hearing last week. It's very exciting to see the fruits of your labor coming to fruition. And as a reminder, there are large networks of CBOs supporting you and are invested in your success and service of our great LA County. And we offer the following as friendly recommendations in the spirit of wanting you to succeed in your role. We'd like to recommend that you extend the speaking time during the public hearing for communities of interest from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. And that's to remain consistent with the amount of time given for all public speakers throughout all the upcoming public hearings. This is in the spirit of living into your values, especially ensuring equity for all members of the public, and not to come as a disservice to those who may join late due to other life commitments. And secondly, we're thankful for your commitment. I understand this is a voluntary role for you. It goes deep into the night, but we'd like to encourage you to not adjourn the COI hearings until at least 90 minutes have passed, to allow for those potential latecomers to provide their testimony, again, in the spirit of living into equity. And lastly, we're thankful for the willingness and availability of your executive director, Gayla Hartso. She has been very gracious in her willingness to work with CBOs. And we offer these comments tonight to support your work because as executive director, she may have limitations in her role. So to the co-chairs and to commissioners, we offer these recommendations, again, in the spirit of living into equity, to make sure that all the public speakers have an equitable opportunity to provide their feedback on their communities throughout the county. Thank you so much.
Next, we have Margot Reig, Los Angeles County League of Women Voters, who would like to make a general comment. So Margot Reig, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute, and you may share your video if you are comfortable.
Good evening, commissioners. I am Margot Reig from the LA County League of Women Voters, and I am very grateful to this commission for being as cooperative and enthusiastic about the task of creating new supervisorial districts within LA County. The League of Women Voters is a very strong supporter of independent redistricting commissions and the independent redistricting process. We have a bedrock principle in the League of public participation in all government functions, and the public hearings are a wonderful opportunity for the public to participate and to give their testimony and to describe their neighborhoods so that you have a better feeling for which neighborhoods belong together. In this spirit, I have 2 points. One is agreeing with Alejandra that it would be very beneficial to the public to facilitate as many people being able to give their testimony as possible, to hold the public hearing period at least for 90 minutes, even if there are not initially enough people to fill that time frame. There are people who may or may not be able to be available exactly at 7 o'clock for a variety of reasons, whether it's work or family obligations. And by holding the meeting open, it allows people to figure out how to get online and to give their testimony. The other thing I would like to suggest is that in the spirit of public testimony, to do your official business either before 7 p.m. or after the 90-minute public hearing time has completed, in order for the public to know that there is a beginning time of 7 o'clock and an ending time. Therefore, they will not be sitting around waiting while they're hoping to give their testimony. And I appreciate your gesture this evening to hold the business meeting after the hearing. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Rosalind Gold, who would like to make a general comment. Rosalind, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. When you begin speaking, you will have 2 minutes. You may share your video if you are comfortable.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Rosalind Gold. I'm Chief Public Policy Officer with the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials. That's the NALEO Educational Fund, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that is committed to ensure that Latinos and all Californians and all people in our nations can fully participate in our political process. And of course, therefore, redistricting is very vital to our mission. I wanted to make our general public comment regarding a presentation that you received on June 9th from Dr. Matt Barretto. It was both a presentation and a PowerPoint on the Federal Voting Rights Act. The presentation was quite comprehensive, very informative. Dr. Barretto is indeed quite expert, but we just wanted to comment on one of the slides. Slide 10 set forth what were characterized as lawful criteria or lawful considerations for redistricting. And it included criteria such as competitiveness and avoiding two incumbents being in the same district. We would just hope that there is clarification that even though there may be jurisdictions where these are lawful criteria, there are very specific criteria laid out in California law that this commission must consider in drawing its lines, and competitiveness is not one of them. And also, where incumbents live is not relevant, and that information is not considered to be appropriate to be considered by the commission. So just a clarification, we would hope that there will be a future presentation specifically on the criteria that this commission needs to follow. That may be something that you already have on your radar, but in addition to understanding the voting rights generally and racially polarized voting generally, we do hope there will be a presentation specifically on the criteria under law for the commission. Thank you so much for your dedication. I appreciate it.
Okay, next we have Jose Del Rio III, who would like to make a general public comment from California Common Cause. Jose, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself, and if you are comfortable, you may share your video as well.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Jose Del Rio III, and I am the Los Angeles local redistricting advocate for California Common Cause. California Common Cause has worked to create an independent and transparent and fair redistricting process on the state and local level in California. I rise today on behalf of California Common Cause to thank this commission and its staff for the measures it's taken to ensure an independent, transparent, and fair redistricting process. This commission is doing an amazing job, and we are greatly appreciative of its efforts. In addition, I'd also like to support several of the comments stated here tonight and ask that the commission consider expanding the allotted public comment time during the COI hearings to 3 minutes per speaker, regardless of the turnout of the COI hearing. As you know, receiving COI testimony is incredibly important to this commission and its mission. In addition, I'd like this commission to commit to not adjourning to the COI hearings until at least 90 minutes have passed to allow for latecomers to give testimony. And finally, I'd just like to say, I appreciate the commission's earlier gesture when they moved the meeting minutes to the end of the hearing to ensure maximum allotted time to collect COI testimony, from the members of the public. Thank you so much. All three are important to ensuring the public has sufficient time and avenues to inform this commission about the communities of interest. Thank you again.
Next, we have Karen Diaz from Churla who would like to make a comment. Karen Diaz, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself, and if you are comfortable, you may share your video. You will have 2 minutes to make your comment once you begin speaking.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Karen Diaz from Churla, an immigrant rights organization, and our mission is to achieve a just society fully inclusive of immigrants. And I'm also here as part of the People's Bloc, a multiracial table dedicated to the inclusion of everyday residents, conducting public education and proposing solutions to the redistricting process. I wanted to congratulate all of you and your staff on hosting the first public hearing for community of interest. Today, I wanted to ask the Commission to extend the speaking time for the public hearings of community of interest from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, and to maintain consistent amount of time throughout the public hearings that are coming up. We tremendously appreciate the efforts of the county and the commission staff who have already undertaken a lot to ensure that the Los Angeles County residents have the ability to provide this public comment. Last week, when I was able to provide public comment on my capacity as a resident of LA County, I realized that it was too short of an amount of time to provide a very in-depth account of my community. And I know that a lot of our community members will greatly benefit from having an extra amount of time. We have expertly worked with a lot of communities that are hard to count in the census and have started engaging in the redistricting process from the start. And I've been encouraging the community members to learn about the redistricting, but folks who don't regularly attend these community meetings often fear participation in these meetings and might need an extra amount of time to share their ideas in a way that will be beneficial to you. So again, just want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to our continued partnership with the LA County Redistricting Commission.
So we do have a few hands raised as well. Co-chairs, would you like to move to that?
Actually, if I may, Ty, I believe that Christine Louise Mills is in QA.
Correct.
To speak.
Yes. So Christine Lewis Mills of the LA River Communities Environmental Equity. I believe you also submitted an entry into the COI form. But if this is for the general public comment, I will go ahead. And so Zoom will prompt you to unmute yourself. When you begin speaking, you will have 2 minutes. And if you're comfortable, please share your video.
Hi, can you hear me and see me? I think so. Okay. To turn off this, I didn't know I had a virtual background on. I will turn it off since I'm actually in my community. I am here in Elysian Valley, and I'm just basically calling in, taking a moment here to say, please to keep Supervisorial District 1 intact. I put a lot of time into public health for our community, particularly dealing with air pollution issues. Elysian Valley is flanked by freeways, the 5, the 110, the 2, and the Metrolink Central Maintenance Facility, which is a grossly polluting diesel facility in our area. And Supervisor Solis is one of the few public officials who has consistently stood with us on this issue and tried to make improvements in a really complicated situation. And, you know, working on clean air, we have alliances across the east side and throughout this district. And I really appreciate the opportunity to say I would love for our district to stay intact. We have a lot of community engagement going on in the improvements of public health, particularly with the focus of clean air and equity, environmental equity in particular. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, and if I may, I'm the executive director. Just points of clarification for the public. This section of our meeting is just general comments about anything on our agenda. Public comment for the public hearing about where you would like to have the lines drawn for your supervisorial district should be postponed until after the co-chairs give an overview of what redistricting is, and then we will be opening that up to public comment. As our clerk tidily explained, we would appreciate if you'd fill out the speaker card, which is an online community of interest Google form. And all you need to do is give us your name, your zip code. You can answer some of the other questions about your community, and then you can check if you want to speak. If you don't want to speak, but you want to give input, the form will be added to our database and will be read by the commissioners. So with that, do we have any other comments on just the general agenda for the meeting? Because otherwise we'll move into the public hearing.
We do have one hand up. Co-chairs, how would you like to proceed? I know logistically we mentioned for members of the public who would like to make a comment to put in the QA.
You're on the phone?
No, I believe not.
Okay. I would like to hear them. Dan, I hear you.
That's fine. That's fine. Unless there's no, I guess there's no way to determine whether they actually have a community of interest input or a general comment if they just have their hand up. So
Hand is up. Do they understand where the QA button is? Because that's how it would help us that we can officially have them enter their name if they don't want to fill out the form. And it's at the bottom of your screen. It's a little Q and A box. And if you click that on, someone has entered they're having trouble with the link for the public comments.
Yes, but they have also, I received their entry from earlier today. So they will be speaking later in the public hearing.
Okay, so I would ask the people with their hands raised if they could enter their names into QA so we have it for the record. Are the hands still raised, Ty?
Yes.
Why don't you call their names and see if they need to, if they want to make a public comment now or later?
Okay. So under the name Murph, M-U-R-F, they have their hand raised. Murph, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. And if you are comfortable, you may share your video. Hello, Murph.
Does the individual named Murph want to speak? Let's assume by the silence that maybe they raised their hand by accident. Now we have a John Mendoza who raised his hand. John Mendoza, do you want to speak on the general comments?
So John Mendoza, you'll be prompted by Zoom to unmute. And if you are comfortable, you may share your video.
Okay, and I'm unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, my name is John Mendoza. I live on the city of Pomona, and so I just wanted to get some clarification that if I have a comment to make about the first supervisorial district I live in, that I should wait on until later on in the agenda, right? Is that correct?
That is correct. This is just
That's all I
general
wanted to ask
comments
right now.
about the commission in general.
and also if you can fill out the form, the Google form, that would help us as well.
Okay, so I fill it out and then I'll send it to you right now.
That would be
you.
great.
Thank you.
So co-chairs, we currently do not have any more raised hands or any other queued up for the general public comment.
Okay. Thank you. We shall move on to the presentation on the redistricting process. So I'll hand it over to Co-Chair Maeda.
Thank you. So we're excited as a commission to hear your public comment on communities of interest. But before we get there, we have a brief presentation that we wanted to provide to you, sort of an explanation about the redistricting process, the challenges we will have, or criteria we're going to be using, as well as ways in which you can help us do the best job we can in terms of drawing the lines. And I see that we don't quite have there we go. So we have a few topics we're going to be discussing briefly with you today. The first is what our approach is with this redistricting process this time. Next slide. In the past, the LA County Board of Supervisors chose their own committee, a redistricting boundaries committee that would look at the new census data and make recommendations for district boundaries. But the supervisors were free to accept those suggestions or to reject them and draw their own lines. This time, for the very first time, we have state legislation which provided that there is an establishment of an independent, fully independent Citizens Redistricting Commission comprised of 14 citizens of LA County, reasonably reflective of the diversity of the county, who are going to be drawing the lines as a commission. We're completely independent of the current Board of Supervisors. In fact, our bylaws provide that we are not to knowingly have any contact with any supervisor, their staff, families, or agents. So it is something that we're sort of drawing on a clean slate, and that's why it's especially important to get your input today. Next slide. Redistricting is very important for a number of reasons, and as a result, we've adopted values that we hope to guide our process. Those values are accountability, transparency, objectivity, integrity, and inclusion and equity. And there's a lot more words to that, a lot more explanation of what those values mean. And you'll find this entire slide at our website at redistricting.lacounty.gov. There you will also find a lot of other information about upcoming public hearings, regular meetings, the agendas, the slide presentations that sort of summarize the redistricting. You can provide public input. Eventually, you'll be able to use mapping software. And you could also give us your email address, and there you'll be able to get access to a stream of information about the process we're going to be following and whatever the upcoming hearings and meetings will be. Next slide. Next, I want to talk about the significance and the diversity and the size of LA County and how that plays a role in our redistricting task. Next slide. Redistricting is extremely important. Every 10 years, there's a new census, and that tells you where all the people in the United States live, and including in local areas such as LA County. That's important because certain areas of LA County might have grown at a faster rate in terms of population than other areas. People in the county may have moved to different parts of the county. And we want to ensure when we draw new district boundaries that each district has roughly the same population in each district. So that's a task that our commission is doing. There's also a statewide Citizens Redistricting Commission. They're responsible for drawing the boundaries for the congressional seats, congressional representatives, state Senate representatives, state assembly representatives. And there's also local redistricting efforts, such as the city of Los Angeles also is doing a redistricting for the city council districts. All of those are relying on 2020 census data, which we're anxiously awaiting and which we will hopefully get in late summer or early fall. Next slide. Redistricting is important because in Los Angeles County, each of the supervisors control an awfully large amount of resources and services. The county provides healthcare services, sheriff's services, And each supervisor controls a lot of money in terms of these kinds of services as well. So it's really important who your supervisor is. And that's why it's important that we draw the boundaries in such a way so that you have a fair opportunity to elect a supervisor of your choice. Next slide. Los Angeles County is the most populated county in the United States, 10 million people, give or take. A quarter of California's population resides right here in LA County. LA County's population is greater than that of 41 individual states. Put another way, only 9 states have a greater population, bigger population within their state than LA County does. We are the 3rd largest metropolitan economy in the world, 88 cities and over 100 neighborhoods, unincorporated areas in the county. And as you know, we are one of the most ethnically diverse counties in the United States. Next slide. This slide shows you the current supervisorial districts. And one of the things you'll notice right away is District 5 is extremely large, geographically speaking, as compared to some of the other districts. Let's say District 1 in the middle of the county. Why is that? District 1, of course, is in a very densely populated area. And so that district has roughly 2 million people in it. District 5 consists of an area that is less densely populated. So there's a need to have more area in order to ensure that it captures the roughly 2 million or so people in it. As I said, these are the current boundaries. We're not bound by them in any way. We can draw our own boundaries as long as we meet the criteria, which we'll describe in a moment. We are required as a commission to draw 5 supervisorial districts for the 5 supervisors. We can't draw fewer than 5 or more than 5. That would require voter approval. Next slide. Historically, as I mentioned, the supervisors drew their districts themselves. And in the late 1980s, a group of activists sued the county in a case called Garza versus County of Los Angeles, arguing that the Latino or Hispanic population's vote was being diluted by the boundaries. The court agreed and found that the way that the supervisors had drawn the districts in the 1990 cycle was a violation of the Voting Rights Act. So that's one of the things we're supposed to look at, is to make sure that when we draw the boundaries, we're not in violation of the Voting Rights Act. Next slide. Briefly, we're going to talk about, give you an overview of the redistricting, the criteria that we're going to be using. Next slide. To draw the lines, we have to follow certain guidelines, and these are in the statute, state statute. These are the 5 criteria in order of priority. Number 1, as I mentioned, each district has to have roughly equal population as compared to the other districts. Number 2, the districts have to comply with the Voting Rights Act, the Federal Voting Rights Act. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Number 3, the districts have to be geographically contiguous. That means each part of the district has to touch the other parts of the district. Number 4, and this is important, we're going to take important public input on this issue. To the extent possible, the districts should maintain the geographic integrity of cities, local neighborhoods, and communities of interest. And you'll be providing input to us on what you consider to be your communities of interest. But as much as possible, we're going to try to keep cities together, neighborhoods, and communities of interest. The one big exception, of course, is the city of Los Angeles, which by itself has 4 million people. So obviously that city cannot be kept in one district. But other than that, we're supposed to try to keep the districts together, the cities together in the same district. And number 5, to the extent practicable and not in violation or not contradicting 1 through 4, the districts should be as compact as possible, geographically speaking. So those are the basic criteria, and go to the next slide. And I think at this point, I'll turn the speaking card over to Co-Chair Williams.
Thank you, Co-Chair Maeda. The first one, the first criteria we're looking at is to make sure that each district has a reasonably equal population. And as we saw in the map that represent the current supervisorial districts, it's not about, we're looking at equal population, not geographic size. So we saw one supervisorial district 5 was large, but that it still had only 2 million people in it. It's based on the current census, which was taken for 2020. And if we're saying equal population, there are 10 million people in the county of Los Angeles. That means each supervisorial district should have roughly 2 million people in it. Next slide, please. The next criteria we look at is we want to give racial and ethnic groups a fair shot. And Co-Chair Maeda hit on that, and I'm going to discuss it a little bit more. Next slide, please. Well, what we're looking at is this: we do not want to be in violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And basically it's saying we do not discriminate in voting on the basis of race or ethnicity. Here we're looking at, if this is an example of 4 districts, the ones that are colored represent minorities, we'll say. And if there's several ways we can draw this. If you can draw it straight for 2 lines down the middle and across, you've got equal representation in each district. They're basically the same population. But if we're looking at trying to create a majority minority district, what we're seeing here is what could be considered a dilution of the ability of the ethnic minorities to elect representation of their choice. So this is one way to do it. This is not the way we are required to do it by law. Next slide, please. Okay, what we want to do, the voting right requires us as much as possible to empower minorities to elect representation that represents them. Another way to do that is what we look at. We want to create a majority minority district. Here we still have, each one is equal size, but in the middle, we're able to create a district where minorities make up 3/4 of the district. Here, they have a voice as they start to look at electing a candidate of their choice. Their voting is not diluted as it was in the original district, and here they will be able to have their own representation. And what we saw as a result of this was the election of Gloria Molina, the first Latina elected to the county supervisorial, to the county supervisors in 1991. So that's something that's very important, one of the top priorities and criteria that we look at. Next slide, please. As we continue to draw the lines, one of the things we look at is it geographic continuity, contiguous? Is it contiguous? I have a hard time with that word, sorry. But basically we're saying, is it connected? We want to make sure that each part of the district is geographically connected. We won't be able to connect the South Bay with perhaps Pasadena. It's not connected geographically. Next slide, please. Now this one is very important in some of what we'll be talking about today. We want to preserve the geographic integrity of cities, neighborhoods, and communities of interest, which means we want to keep them in the same district as much as possible. What's important about that is, in terms of what's important is we start to look at what's a community of interest, and this is where we need you to help us understand what they are. Community of interest is a contiguous population, is connected geographically, that shares common social and economic interests. And what we want to do, as we've said before, group them in a single supervisorial district. We want to make sure that those supervisors who are elected have an opportunity to understand the interests of the communities and neighborhoods that they represent, and not only understand those interests, are able to respond to those interests. When we talk about communities of interest, it could be something social and economic interest. It could be things around traffic, density, geography, public safety. Some of the issues may be maybe there are a lot of unhoused people in the district, or crime may be an issue. But what it is brings people together in a geographically connected area. And what we'll be listening to you is for you to tell us what those common interests are and why we need to pay attention to those and keep them in one district. Next slide, please. The next thing we want to do is look at, is the district compact? And basically, we're looking at the shape of the district. If the lines start to meander, one of the things we might say, what's happening? Is it, could we be gerrymandering here? What's happening with that district? So as much as possible, we're looking at the shape. The more round it is or compact, that tells us our district is meeting this criteria. Next slide, please. Finally, when we start to do this, we don't draw lines to favor any political group. It's not about Republicans, it's not about Democrats or independents. We're drawing lines to represent the people, the communities of interest, preserving geographic integrities, neighborhoods, and making sure that racial and ethnic groups have a fair shot. Next slide, please. So we've talked about what this meeting is all about, is giving you that opportunity, as Co-Chair Marietta has said, and you've heard from the beginning of our meeting, for you to tell us about what your interests are, the communities of interest, where you are, why we should keep your communities together, and that's where we'll be headed. That's our next agenda item. So at this point, we've mentioned what your organization can do to stay involved, to be a part of our, to join our, I'm sorry, I'm having a problem. But what we'd like you to do is make sure you're aware of our website to give us your information. We can get information out to you, attend our meetings, and right now we're going to move to a public hearing, provide information to us, and you can do that in a public hearing, and you'll be able to submit your information in writing. This is the second of public hearings that we'll be providing to get feedback from you. And tonight, we're going to move right ahead to open our public hearing. And just a reminder, this is, can we go back to the map? Okay. Okay, I was going to mention the map that we had. It was showing the hearings that we have. We created zones. The zones overlap the 5 districts, and it's not, we have not created districts. They do not, but it's an opportunity for us to look at neighborhoods and zip codes, and for you to have an opportunity to provide feedback. Move to the public hearing. And Ty, would you once again provide the instructions, please, on how to speak and how to get involved?
Of course. So as a reminder for members of the public interested in making a public comment, you may submit your name and information to the Community of Interest Google form available in the chat and on the CRC website. You will be asked on the form to describe your communities of interest, and when you are called to make your public comment, you will be prompted to unmute your mic so you can speak, and you may turn on your video if you are comfortable. If you are participating via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. And once called upon, press *6 to unmute and speak. Each person will have 1 opportunity to speak for 2 minutes. The co-chairs reserve the right to limit public comments to 1 minute per person, depending on how many would like to speak. When you begin making your comment, please share your name and any affiliation you may have. If you do not wish to speak but would still like to submit a public comment, you may do so by going to the same Google form. Again, you will find the link to the Google form in the chat or on the CRC website. For members of the public who would like to make a public comment on communities of interest and not a resident of Zone D, you may submit your name and affiliated organization in the Q&A. Your name will be called to make a public comment after members of the public who filled in the communities of interest form for Zone D. In defining communities of interest, this can include, but is not limited to, the economic and social interests that bind your community together, and why your community should be kept together for fair and effective representation, where your community is located, and what nearby areas you would like your areas to be grouped with or not. The order in which we will take public comments will be as followed. First, individuals in Zone D who complete the communities of interest form by zip code in numerical order. Second, individuals who complete the communities of interest form from other communities of interest not covered by zip codes. Third, individuals who submit their name to the Q&A box on Zoom. And fourth, individuals who call in. So when making your public comment, if you would like to have a map shown, please indicate so. And as a reminder, the free mapping software for redistricting will be available in late July. However, the census data will not be available until late August. If you would like to submit maps in the interim, you may email them to the clerk at tle@crc.lacounty.gov. And so with that, we will begin with the public comments. So we do have submitted to the COI form 6 entries that would like to make public comments.
And if I could just mention for the benefit of the public, you are welcome to fill out the Google Docs form. Hopefully you'll be able to access it. I know there's been at least one person who's had some trouble accessing it, but hopefully you can access that. And if you fill that out, you can provide your public comment to us in a written form. And if that's all you want to do, that's fine. That form also has a box you can check where, in addition to giving us information in writing, you indicate you also want to speak, and then you'll be called upon, as Ty mentioned. So either way is fine. If you want to fill out the card and also speak, that's available to you as well. You will get one opportunity to actually address us in speaking to us. But we certainly encourage everybody to fill out the cards so that we can keep a record of who's attended and what your comments are. It just makes it easier for us for record keeping purposes. But it's up to you whether you would like to actually speak orally to us or just submit it in writing. So Ty, you said there's 6 folks who fill out the cards who want to speak?
Correct.
Okay.
So I will continue to refresh it if folks are still filling out the form, but we will start with Margaret Siegel. Margaret Siegel, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. And then if you are comfortable, you may share your video.
And let's go ahead and give the public commenters 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes.
I'm going to ask co-chair, so Maeda, so we'll do the 3 minutes. The other thing I just want to make sure the public realizes, if you don't have time to do the form tonight, you can fill it out anytime through August 22nd.
Good point.
And we'll be collecting this information. If you do not speak tonight and you'd like to speak at another public hearing, we welcome you.
And they'll have an opportunity, if they want to provide not just one comment, they can provide additional comments, as many as they like.
Right. Co-chairs, would you like me to share the map or do it afterwards?
Why don't we start with the map so everybody is grounded in what zone we're talking about?
Let's try that.
And also, do you know the zone that Margaret Siegel is speaking from?
The zip code that Margaret Siegel is speaking from, or the zone?
Well, let's look at the zone and maybe we can focus on the zip code as well.
Okay, I'm in 90041, and I believe it's Zone D.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I want to thank you all for your service. I know this isn't an easy job you've been given. I have a couple of concerns. First of all, I wanted to mention what we all know is that District 1 was created to give some power to the Latinx communities and to keep them, you know, as whatever contiguous communities there were, to keep them in the same district and provide some power in the city. And that has worked over the years. I have a couple of concerns over, number one, the census being delayed and hopefully not creating preliminary maps or maps before those census results are received. And my other concern, and it also has to do with the census, is that in particular, District 1, which may have one of the heaviest concentrations of undocumented populations. And in this census, people were intimidated to some degree when there was that proposed question on the census, are you a citizen? And even though that question never made it to the census, I think that stayed with a lot of people in our communities in this district. And we may have had an undercount as a result of it. And I think the pandemic exacerbated the situation where groups who were concerned couldn't go out and do outreach door to door and try to convince people to fill this out. So, so I do have a concern that the census, this particular census, may not reflect the actual population in the district. And I don't know if by law you can't take that into consideration, but it should be a concern for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next one, so the next speaker is Miran Tumajan. So Miran, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. When you begin speaking, you will have 3 minutes. And I believe Miran Turajan may not be currently in the room. Okay. So we will move next to, just give me a moment as I check because there are multiple zip codes that are not within Zone D that would like to speak tonight. So next is Shana Warren. So Shana Warren, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. And if you are comfortable, please share your video. You will have 3 minutes to make your public comments once you begin speaking.
Good evening, Commissioners. As a resident of Burbank/Glendale, I would like to go on record requesting that the Redistricting Commission keep our Tri-City communities, Glendale, Pasadena, and Burbank, together in the same supervisorial district. The Tri-Cities region is a community of interest, and our communities are woven together by overlapping county service needs. Our 3 cities collectively share economic, transit, and public safety resources. It is in the best interest of this community that we are able to advocate as one voice and work with only one supervisor. Please keep Glendale, Pasadena, Burbank in supervisorial district. Thank you.
So we currently have no more submissions for zip codes within Zone D. We do have a handful of folks from other zip codes that filled out the COI form. So I'll go ahead and go down the list. Next is Christine Lewis Mills. So Christine, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. And please share your video if you are comfortable. When you begin speaking, you will have 3 minutes.
Ty, can you also show on the map where the speaker will be from?
Of course.
And also, Christine, since I'm taking notes, I would appreciate the spelling of your last name, or do you just want to go by Christine Los Angeles?
No, Mills, M-I-L-L-S is my last name.
M-I-L-L-A-S?
M-I-L-L-S, like mills, like a flour mill or
Thank you.
grain mill. Okay. First of all, so thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I apologize for jumping in at the wrong time. I'm an active member of my community and full-time mom and working and also serving on my neighborhood council. So I've got a lot of irons in the fire and I just didn't quite have the timing right for this evening. I live in Elysian Valley. We are a really small neighborhood. We get overlooked a lot because our population is tiny, but we're really heavily burdened by pollution from the 5 freeway with excessive diesel truck pollution, the 110, the 2, and then we are also chambered in by the Metrolink maintenance facility on San Fernando Road. So we're this gem of the Los Angeles River surrounded by some really heavy duty pollution factors, air pollution factors. And I'm speaking, baby, sorry. The allies that we formed in this, I'm not sure what everybody's background is with air pollution, but it is a really difficult issue to work on. I have put years and years into trying to bring attention and accountability to the air pollution that we suffer with the diesel pollution from the Metrolink facility. And it's so complicated. And Supervisor Hilda Solis, because we're also connected to Boyle Heights, which suffers train yard related issues, right? So we've got the rail as a connectivity between our communities and balance that is just, she has been one of our only allies. And this is a very hard issue to get attention on. It's a tricky issue. We've got a little more help with the connecting COVID related illness and air pollution, but we feel like sometimes like a lonely voice out here. And we are often silenced by the big machine that runs Metrolink. And we need to stay connected with our communities that are also dealing with rail pollution and trying to improve transit. Not only do we have this heavy, heavy pollution burden from polluting transit, we have no transportation, public transportation. Our one bus line that took our neighbors from our Chinese American community to Chinatown no longer goes to Chinatown. Like, it's gonna go to the Gold Line and that's great, but like we have one bus. It runs every 60 minutes, every day of the week. Like, we have so little access. I think that's my time, but we need our allies in this fight for clean air. It's a hard fight and we need to be kept together. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morales, I see your hand up. Would you like to make a comment for it? So next we have Rafael C. Chagoya. So Rafael, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. If you're comfortable, please share your video. You will have 3 minutes to speak when you begin speaking. And I will pull up your area.
Ty, while he's getting ready, can you show more specifically the area that the speaker will be talking about?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
And
okay.
Rafael, I can't see your full name. There, now I can. Thank you.
Great, thank you. My name is Rafael Chagoya. I live in the Boyle Heights area, but I have a lot of family and friends throughout the region. In splitting up the D zone, we create a lot of trouble for all the people that I know, friends and family alike, especially the ones of the Latino background. We've had enough trouble as it is with the pandemic, with people losing their jobs and housing left and right. People losing their homes because they cannot afford to pay their mortgages. I have a friend that's in the foreclosure process right now as we speak. We cannot afford to lose the unity of Zone D. And I urge you, as a veteran of the U.S. Army, to think about this. I know we are in preliminary hearings, but we cannot afford to do any more damage of that has already been done because of the pandemic. And even more so, since we do not have the numbers from the census, this is just not acceptable. And I'm in total opposition of the district redistricting process at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next person on the list is Hans Johnson, but I believe they are no longer in the Zoom room. So let's go ahead and go to the next one, which is John Mendoza. So John Mendoza, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. If you are comfortable, please share your video. Once you begin speaking, you will have 3 minutes.
John, make sure we have on the map the area you're going to be talking about. The San Dimas. Okay, you may begin whenever you're ready. We'll start the timer when you're ready.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Should I start now or no?
Please.
Okay. Anyways, my name is John Mendoza. I'm in 91768 zip code out here in the 1st District. And when I see your map right here where it includes Pomona, I was just looking at wondering if there's, I understand that Supervisor Barger is the supervisor for Laverne and also San Dimas. Is that correct? I can't hear nobody.
So to answer your question, what we'd have to do, which we can, is let's have Ty show where the supervisorial district lines are currently. So this will take a second, and I'll keep track of the time so we can.
I believe that is correct.
Okay.
He's going to pull them up so you can see them shortly, John.
Yeah, you see that little map right there, that little tip right there. And that's the area that I'm concerned about, is where it jogs around that little, it looks like a kind of like an hourglass right there between the Laverne area and the San Dimas area, which extends to Pomona. But the area that I'm really concerned about is the area around the Fairplex and also up in Ganesha Hills. You know, Pomona as itself is kind of distinguished as a disadvantaged community. Just a couple of weeks ago, a water project was was given to Pomona, or almost given to Pomona. There's still going to be another vote just on the fact that it's classified as a disadvantaged community, but there's only sectors of it. And if you look at Ganesha Hills, that's a higher income area, and that's connected to like the Fairplex and so far. And also there's another area called Precinct 1, which is way up above near the area of Laverne, the city of Laverne. As a matter of fact, the people in that one precinct are in a different school district, and they kind of like share a commonality with the people up there in Laverne, San Dimas, the people in Ganesha Hills. And if there was any, reason that you would have to shift the population, say, for example, from Pomona or from the 1st District to up to the 5th, I would like to recommend that you take that area into consideration in the community interest of those two areas. I think it would be beneficial to the people in that higher income neighborhood and for the peace and tranquility of the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the next person who would like to make a comment is Alejandra Ramirez Zarate. So Alejandra, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. If you're comfortable, please share your video. You will have 3 minutes when you begin speaking.
Hi, Commissioners. Thank you once again for this opportunity. My name is Alejandra Ramirez Zarte. I'm providing public comment as a resident of zip code 91325. I did want to note that it is technically Northridge zip code, but it is the border of Lake Balboa and Northridge. And I wanted to offer that we have more in common with the East San Fernando Valley and would appreciate being drawn together with them, understanding that there are freeways we have to access or just streets to get to the Eastern San Fernando Valley. But we have more similarities, more issues, more concerns that align with the Eastern San Fernando Valley that don't align with the Western San Fernando Valley. Our communities of color across what is Lake Balboa, Northridge border, Reseda, North Hills, and Western Van Nuys are undocumented. While our poor communities with diluted power because of the white affluent communities of Tarzana, Woodland Hills, Granada Hills, and Porter Ranch that dilute our opportunity to elect our candidate of choice. And to reiterate, we do not want to be drawn anymore with those communities and with Calabasas and with Hidden Hills. And Encino, for years we've had to share representation with communities that do not align with our values, with the way that we exist as people of color in this part of LA County. And the communities, again, that I'm referring to, these communities of color have been disproportionately affected by COVID. When you look at COVID indicators, these are the red hot spots that you'll see on maps. They consist of hard to count census areas, again, showing up as hotspots on any census outreach map. And also by census data that's available. We are disproportionately affected by pollution, unemployment, rent issues, and do not have access to disposable income like the Western San Fernando Valley does. If we look at data on children that have had the opportunity to go back to schools, the predominant affluent communities in the Western San Fernando Valley, they have had access to those resources, whereas those communities of color that are absorbed in the Western San Fernando Valley that align more with the Eastern San Fernando Valley are not afforded those opportunities. And additionally, those schools are not as well funded as the other ones in the Porter Ranch and Chatsworth areas. And we are undocumented. We are immigrants. We live paycheck to paycheck. Like I said, we don't have access to disposable income. Issues that the Western San Fernando Valley just cannot relate to, just as a matter of existing as a person of color with no access to resources. As in one example, my family and I have been evicted in the past. How many folks in the Western San Fernando Valley that are provided their representation, can they say that because of their income level, because of their socioeconomic status, their education level? My neighbors, I've seen them be evicted. I've seen crime go up in our neighborhoods because we don't have the response time that the other parts of the Western San Fernando Valley does. We are not citizens, so we cannot vote. So where some of them can vote, others, and their votes are diluted. Others of us, I cannot vote. So there are limited ways that I can elevate my voice. So I'm thankful for this process. A high proportion of limited English proficiency folks. And so to recap, we really don't care for an affiliation of keeping the San Fernando Valley whole. We'd rather be mapped together with the Eastern San Fernando Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Holtzman and Commissioner Stetcher, I see both of your hands up. Would you like to make a comment or ask a question before moving on?
Yeah, a quick question. Would you be willing to send us on a map, a line drawn on a map somewhere between Northridge and Calabasas, showing pretty much precisely how you would like to be split from that part of town, from that part of the county? Would you be able to do that, please?
So I believe she has already been changed to attendees status. Co-chairs, would you like me to bring her back to answer the question?
No, I think she's heard it and she can consider it.
And she has my email, so she can send it to me to share.
Right. So I believe Commissioner Stetcher no longer has his hand up. So we currently have no additional entries in the COI form. We do have one hand up from a caller. So we'll go ahead and move there. So caller from 818, starting with 818-817, you will be prompted by Zoom to begin speaking. If you're on the phone, press *6 to unmute yourself. When you begin speaking, you will have 3 minutes. And if possible, please state your name as well as which area you will be speaking about. So again, *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Hi. I submitted a form this evening, and you called me earlier, but we couldn't communicate. I do live in Zone D. My name is Miran Tumajan. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the commissioners for convening this inaugural public hearing of the Los Angeles County Redistricting Commission. As a resident of Zone D, specifically in the city of Glendale, and as the Western Region Director of the Armenian Assembly of America, a nonpartisan and nonprofit advocacy organization based in Glendale, I would like to go on the record requesting that the Redistricting Commission keep our Tri-Cities communities, Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena, together in the same supervisorial district. The Tri-Cities region is a community of interest for the Armenian American community. Our communities are woven together by shared social, cultural, and economic interests. Los Angeles County is home to the second largest number of Armenians outside of the Republic of Armenia, and it is also the greatest concentration of the Armenian population in Los Angeles County. The greatest concentration resides in the Tri-Cities of Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena. It is ultimately in the best interests of the Armenian American community that our community be able to advocate as one voice and work with one supervisor. On behalf of the Armenian Assembly of America and as a Glendale resident, I urge you to keep Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena in the same supervisorial district. Thank you for your attention and service.
So, commissioners, I believe that is all the current public comments queued up. How would you like to proceed?
I would just mention to the members of the public that if you would like to make a public comment in terms of communities of interest input, then please indicate that in the Q&A button. If you're on the Zoom, I think there's a way to raise your hand, so to speak, if you're on the phone. And if you could fill out the community of interest card, that's another way to do it. We'll just take a brief pause to see if there are any additional folks who will come forth. And then we'll move into the business part of the agenda.
If I may, Co-Chair Maeda, I do believe we could proceed after a few minutes into the regular part of the business. If more people do come in, we might then double check to open up for additional testimony before we adjourn.
Why don't we do that then? Seeing Ty, I assume no one has, since I started speaking, no one has raised their hand.
No hands, no entries into the COI form.
Okay. So why don't we at this point adjourn the public hearing subject to reopening after the conclusion of our business in terms of the regular commission business. Commissioner Holtzman, did you have something you wanted to say? I thought I saw a hand. No. Okay, so I believe the only order of business that's been agendized is the minutes. Is that right, Gayla?
We have the minutes to go through, and I can pull them up for the dates if you would like.
Great. So the minutes, the draft minutes have been circulated for
I'm going to the wrong one. Give me a sec.
June 9th and June 14th. I think we could take them in order. June 9th, are there any corrections, additions, questions, comments on the draft minutes for the June 9th regular meeting? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes as drafted.
Motion to approve. I second. Oh.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the June 9th regular meeting. Ty, why don't you take roll?
Can I confirm? There were two who seconded. Is it Commissioner Wong or is it another commissioner or both?
Well, we only need one, so it's I don't know who the other one is.
Let it, I did, but it's Commissioner Wong can go. Yeah.
Thank you, Co-Chair Williams.
Okay, commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Yes.
Commissioner Haile Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Yes.
Commissioner John Vento.
Yes.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
I have to be on the window. Yes.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next, the minutes for the June 24th meeting, which is the public hearing in Zone A.
June 14th, not 24th.
Oh, I'm sorry. June 14th. And I see Commissioner Holtzman's hand is raised.
Yes, on page 2, there's a paragraph that says because Zone A was the first public hearing and it goes on from there. I'd like to have that paragraph deleted. It's not really very minutes-like. It announces a policy that the commission never voted on. And it's not the place to announce such a policy. I don't think we should be telegraphing that we're not going to provide summaries for future minutes, for future public hearings in the minutes. And I don't think it's really the only reason why those are there. So anyway, I just don't think that belongs in the minutes. So I ask that it be removed, please.
Any comments on that or any other comments? I'll just say that I don't think that does announce a policy, but if you're concerned that it may signal one or something to that effect, I don't have a problem with deleting those words. You're not changing the substance of the minutes, right? You're just deleting a reference to the idea that the written comments were read out loud. Is that the portion you're talking about?
It's the part saying that we're not going to provide as much detail in the minutes in the future. And in fact, the reason for providing the detail is not needed in the minutes. We just provide the detail and move on.
Gayla, did you have a comment?
Do not want it to mislead anyone that we're not going to be providing a summary, but we will be summarizing the comments in an Excel spreadsheet that will be posted as the public comments made during the public hearings. And not entering them into the actual minutes themselves. We will be referencing the recording of all the public testimonies and we'll be referencing the public comments, but we won't be repeating them in the minutes per se.
All right, so it's unclear now and you are misleading people now because you don't say that.
I don't understand what you just said.
Well, it's misleading to say we're not going to do any, we're not going to provide any summaries of key points when actually Gayla just said we are, but we're not going to put them in the minutes. Again, and the decision whether or not to put summaries of key points in the minutes has not been made by the commission. It's just a recommendation by our county provided executive director at this point. It may be something that we should debate because other commissions do a much better job of summarizing what public commenters say in their minutes.
Well, I think the most important thing is that we capture the public input. And I think we've determined that the best way to capture it is one of the most efficient ways to capture it is through the community of interest input cards that we are collecting. And we're summarizing those cards. We're going to be able to summarize those cards when we capture all that input.
Yeah, we should attach whatever we received to the minutes if we're not going to summarize them in the minutes. This should be part of the minutes.
Any other comments by commissioners on this point or other points on the draft minutes of the 14th?
Commissioner Wong, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I guess I'm trying to get this clear in my mind. What Commissioner Holtzman, what you're asking? Are you proposing that? Well, first you were proposing that we take out that paragraph completely, but then are you changing your recommendation so that you do want? Are you asking to actually have a summary in our minutes, or anyway? Could you please?
No, I just want to. My motion suggestion is just to delete the paragraph that starts with because zone A. It's actually all just one sentence. Just that's what I'm asking for.
Oh,
it's not. It's it's not something you'd ordinarily put in the minutes. It's not something that happened at the meeting. It's just a description of what happened in the preparation of the minutes and a policy about how we're going to do it in the future.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Wong?
Yes, and I guess I would just then move to adopt the minutes as amended by Commissioner Holtzman.
Commissioner Stetcher? Second? Any further discussion? Ty, why don't you take roll on that then?
Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner Priscilla Orpinella Segura.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyla Soto.
Abstain.
Commissioner Sider Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Yes.
Commissioner John Bento.
Yes.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Yes.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Aye.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. What I think there was one other aspect to the agenda. Gayla, you're muted.
This is a good time to again remind the public if they want to add any more public testimony, you all are available. The only other thing I really wanted to go over is to encourage all attendees to help spread the word about the public hearings. This map shows you the upcoming dates. I see, for example, one of our speakers has raised his hand, and the policy is basically an individual gets to speak once in an evening, but we do have one hand up. But we do encourage the public to spread the word. I do know also that Commissioner Holtzman, as part of talking about these public hearings and the impact on the timeline, has an additional report out at this time as well.
Okay, I'll just say that my ad hoc committee on legislation has a letter on The desks of the co-chairs for signing to send to Senator Glazer. I haven't heard that it's been sent to him. It goes along with San Diego and asks for a January 15th map adoption deadline. And we ask that it be put in some legislation and that gets moved along, which would affect our process, give us more time to do our job with more care, with due care. So we hope that the co-chairs sign and get it sent soon, and that it goes into legislation, our suggestion. But if nothing gets into legislation that would help us in any way, and there's nothing now, I don't think my ad hoc or this commission should pursue the issue any further. It may just be a lost cause. But if something does appear in legislation, we'll be calling on everybody to lobby for it. Thank you.
So I believe the draft of that letter has been circulated to the commissioners, and we're wanting to make sure that each commissioner has had a chance to review it and provide any comments. But Co-Chair Williams and I will be shortly finalizing and signing and getting it out. We'll let the working group know. We'll let the entire commission know that that's been done.
And the County of San Diego Commission is looking forward to seeing the letter because they shared theirs with us.
Absolutely. Okay, was that it then, Gail? Gayla?
I have no other report out at this time.
Ty, have any members of the public indicated they want to provide community of interest input at this point?
So currently we have no new entries on the COI form. We do have a hand up, as Gayla mentioned, from someone who has spoke already earlier tonight.
Okay. As indicated to that person, I don't know who that is, but you have one opportunity per public hearing to provide oral testimony. We welcome written testimony, or you're welcome to come back at another public hearing and provide that an update to us orally if you wish. We are now at 8:30, which is the 90 minutes requested that we stay open. And we have had no other public comment or anyone showing up to saying they want to provide public comment in the last 15 minutes or so. So I think unless there's anything else from the commission, I think we will be adjourned. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.